All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Looks like we have a few folks on the line. Hopefully, we'll get some others joining here in just a moment. But it's a couple after the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome all. Thanks for joining our latest OIE Meetup. This is the latest in our Foundations of OIE series, and today's session is going to be focused on custom integrations using the redirection model in OIE. As always, I am joined by a cast of, well, a handful anyway, of my colleagues on the product acceleration team who are going to be helping me out today, fielding any questions that you guys have throughout the presentation. I will note one logistical note. We do have a lot of content to get through today. So as we are going through the presentation, if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to post your questions there. When we get to the end of the content, we will go through those questions and answer any that we have time to live. And also, some of my colleagues will be kind of answering in the QA in real time as you post your questions there. In any event, that will allow us to have a record of your questions. So if there are any questions that we don't have time to get to during the live session today, we can make sure that we address those and get them posted on the community site, et cetera. Having said that, I'll throw out the ubiquitous safe harbor statement. There may be some forward-looking statements in today's presentation. And with that, let me just give you a quick overview of the agenda for today before we dive into the content. So we'll start out with just a quick intro and overview of these sessions, and then we'll dive into today's topic. So first, we'll talk about some of the reasons why, or like the benefits of using the redirection model for customizations. We'll get into dive into the product and look at some of the out-of-the-box customizations that you can do just as configurations within the admin console. We'll take a look at the brand's capabilities within Okta now. We'll look at a relatively new feature, which is end user enrollments endpoints that you can use to kind of help customize some of your flows. We'll take a look at some of the new self-service registration capabilities in OIE. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons of the various federation protocols that are supported. And then we'll try to leave time for some Q&A to answer your questions live towards the end of the session. And if we have time, we'll go through some resources that are available to you around OIE, upgrade-related questions, or just new feature functionality questions. So to kind of quickly give an overview of this series, this is, again, sort of our foundational OIE series. So the idea behind this whole series of webinars is to try to help give you a better understanding of the how and why of the changes in OIE. Particularly if you're still on Classic and considering moving to OIE, to understand like what the underlying I guess the logic behind some of the changes, so that you can then apply that to your own custom integrations, whether it's custom coding integrations or just custom configurations, and have a better understanding of how the changes between Classic and OIE might impact your customized environment. This is now, I think, the 6th or 7th session in this series that we've done. Today's topic, again, as I mentioned, is custom integrations using the redirection model. We do have another session coming up next month. That's going to be another deep dive on custom integrations, but the next one is going to focus on using the client-side embedded model. So this would be like embedded, so like self-hosted embedded widgets, or the JavaScript Auth.js SDK implementations. That'll be next month on the 31st of July, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and the QR code there should take you to the registration form for that if you're interested and want to register. So with that, first let's talk about why you might want to use the redirection model? Like, what are some of the advantages of using the redirection model versus other options? So, number one, there's less work involved, right? So, um, a lot of historically, I know coming from professional services when I originally joined Okta, a lot of the integrations that I worked on used a heavy amount of customization, whether it's APIs or embedded widgets or whatever. But the motivation for a lot of that was largely due to like whether it's aesthetic customization or slight user experience customizations, but most of it is fairly surface level customizations, or at least a good deal of it. Back in the I guess golden ages when I initially joined, like there weren't a lot of options for that level of customization in Okta out of the box. So if you wanted to do any sort of significant customization, that was pretty much your only choice. But there's a lot more flexibility today out of the box. So it opens the door for a lot of use cases to be supported without having to host it yourself or code it yourself and support it. So there's a potential for a lot less work. You're future-proofing your integration as well, because any new features of functionality or authenticator types, et cetera, that are supported by Okta would automatically be supported in your integration if you're using the redirection model. Um, Along similar lines, you would not have any delays or gaps in feature supportability. So as new features are added, I'm sure we've all experienced there can sometimes be a lag between the time that those features show up in the off-the-shelf product versus when they're supported in APIs or particular SDKs that you may be using. So you wouldn't have to worry about any of that. It's much easier to support both for your in-house teams and also Okta support. It's much easier for Okta support to support integrations that are using out-of-the-box redirection customizations as opposed to in-house self-hosted customizations. And for those of you who are still on Classic, it's easier to upgrade. So there's a lot fewer there's a lot smaller surface area for problems, basically, if you're using the redirection model versus having everything done fully embedded in-house. So a lot of good
And
reasons. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and also, and to add on to that, the reason when we talk about the redirection model, we're actually talking about using one of the standards-based federation models. So that's why these things become a lot easier at the end of the day.
Exactly. Exactly.
So to summarize that, so you don't have to have that custom code infrastructure on your network to be able to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for. So using a federation-based model, these things come along for the ride that afford you some agility on your application side, but also a less focus and work on being able to manage the authentication, recovery, and onboarding option work that's needed.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So you let the authentication identity people handle that. That's what we do all day, 24/7, 365, and you can focus on the innovation of your actual product itself. All right. So that's enough slides. Let's jump into the product. And actually, I think it's in the same one here. Let me just escape this. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the out-of-the-box customization. So within the Okta Admin Console, if you look under your customizations model, and this is, I'm looking in an OIE tenant here. A lot of the functionality that I'm showing today is also available in Classic. So it's like the brands capability, for example, much of it is there in Classic as well. So if you are still on Classic and you're looking for an easier path to upgrade, some of this work you could do potentially ahead of time, pre-upgrade, if you wanted to both, upgrade to OIE and move away from a highly embedded model towards a redirection standards-based model. But under customizations, you've got a few things. We'll come back to brands here in a second, but So there are things that you can do, like you can bring your own email provider now. So if you don't want to use Okta's in-house email provider for system-generated emails, you can bring your own email provider. You can do customizations around MFA notifications. Like, so if you want to create custom translations rather than using the default translations, you can do that. Um, I'll skip over the end user dashboard because this is not relevant to a lot of consumer facing use cases anyway. This is be more workforce, but if you are workforce and looking to do a lot of customizations, you have some options here as far as customizing tabs and uh, the grouping of applications, et cetera. Um, and then you can also there are also some just sort of generic customizations you could do under the other section. So if you have external systems that you're using to manage accounts, like self-service management of your accounts. So like managing self-service profile information, et cetera. You can configure this here to redirect for those pieces to some external part and still use the out-of-the-box authentication flows, recovery flows, et cetera. Um, so that's here. You can set up custom error messages. Um, you can set up, let's see what else is here. Um, your redirects for your logo URLs, et cetera. So there's some high level customizations here, but most of it is going to be under brands. So the first thing is that you can now have multiple brands in Okta, and this is true both for Classic as well as OIE. It used to be that you could only have one custom brand or custom domain per tenant. Actually, a long time ago, you couldn't even have that. It was always the Okta URL. But now you can have multiple brands, and then within each brand, you can have a custom domain associated with that. If you take a look at the brand, so you can do some sort of surface level customization without even having to do any coding at all. So if you want to set some custom colors, logos, backgrounds, et cetera, that's all available out of the box. If you want to get a little more advanced in your configuration, you can actually get into a code view and go in and actually, modify the code of your sign-in pages, et cetera, to do whatever more advanced customization that you want. The one thing I would note here is that there is no sort of uh, out of the box versioning control, like version control here. So if you do go in and make like actual coding changes here, it's a good idea to have those versions managed out in something outside of Okta, so that if you do make some changes to the code that introduce issues, you'll have those versions that you can roll back to, because it's there isn't the version control. You basically have like your published version and then whatever you're currently editing here. Um, You can also configure things like which version of the widget you're using. You can configure which identifier you want to use for the widget, um, default application for the widget for this brand. So if you want to have for a particular brand, have it redirect to some specific location other than the Okta dashboard, you can do that, and so forth. So you've got a number of options here. Also, we go back, you can, well, first I'll note the customization of the login page is dependent upon setting up a custom domain. So you would need to come in and set up a custom domain within your Okta tenant. This is super easy to do now as well. You can have Okta manage the certs for you for this if you want. So it makes it super fast and easy, particularly if you're kind of testing out this functionality in your non-prod environment. You don't have to bother with getting your own cert for that. You can just let Okta manage the certs and get this set up in about 5 minutes. Um, Obviously, if you want to bring your own cert, you can do that as well. But this is super easy to set up. And once you have the domain, that domain is now tied to your custom login page. You also have the ability for each brand to customize all the various email templates. And by default, your like whatever aesthetic changes you apply to the theme for the brand will automatically get applied to all of your emails. But you can go further as well because we actually now have um, we have more capability from a customization standpoint within the email template. So um, there's an entire where did I put this? Velocity template language that's available now from within the email templates. And one of the things that's a big use case that used to require sort of uh, embedded customization previously is being able to customize email content based on a specific application that is being used. Um, you can now do that out of the box in OIE because now every single action that happens has app context, and every single email template that gets generated has app context in it. So you can determine which app is the context app for any given flow, and then customize not just look and feel, but the actual content of the emails based on which application is in context. So it gives you a good bit of flexibility there. All right. Now I want to show you there is, well, first of all, let me move over. I'll show you a little bit of the brands in action here. Let me switch over to a different view. So got a simple web app here that is it's configured for redirection. So I'm actually using the Okta Auth.js SDK to help me with that redirection and managing my tokens, et cetera. But it's just a single page app, very basic single page app that's redirecting to Okta and then sending tokens back to my app. Um, I've actually got three versions of this that are all tied to the exact same OIDC client ID in the same Okta tenant. So for different brands, it's redirecting to the brand associated with that version of the app based on the custom domain that's specified in the issuer for that OIDC app. So it's all just by configuring, to use the correct custom domain that's set up in Okta. It's routing to the right place for me. So if I sign in here, now I have, so basically all this app is doing is just getting your tokens, printing them out. Actually, let me do this. There we go. This also has, I wanted to demonstrate some of the new capabilities in OIE here around the Authenticator enrollment endpoints. So if you have sort of your own external like user profile management screen that's outside of Okta that you want to use, but you want to easily give the ability to manage Okta Authenticator enrollments from that page, this is a great way to do it without having to do a lot of coding. You can basically just provide the links here to the specified endpoint and send the user to enroll in a specific authenticator with a redirect URI that will send it back to wherever you want it to go post enrollment. All right. So if I wanted to enroll, let's say I wanted to enroll a phone. First off, it automatically applies my end user management policy requirements around authentication for that. So it prompted me to authenticate. And now I can set up a new phone number. In this case, this is going to be a little tricky because I think I already have my phone enrolled here.
Oh, I was gonna say you can use mine.
Oh, you want to use yours? Okay. You don't mind
Yeah.
putting your phone number on there? Actually, you know what? I can
Yeah.
cancel that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I can
Okay.
uh 845-705-0541. 73946. I'm sorry, 436. 739-436.
All right. And I've set this up to take me back. So I set this up with the redirect URI to take me back to my same sample app here. If we look at the link for this, uh, it's basically just this endpoint with an ID of the specific authenticator type that you want to enroll in, and then a redirect URI that tells it where you want to go. So it'll take you to the Okta UI that's branded for your, per your brand to enroll specifically whatever factor you want based on the ID, and then it'll send you back wherever you want it to go. So it's a way that you can kind of pull that authenticator management into your own screen without having to build in all the screens into your own code. You can just send them off to Okta for one specific thing, and then we'll send them right back to you wherever you tell us to go. And if you want to play around with this, you can actually get this URL pretty easily. Let me switch back over to my admin console. If you go to um, if you go to our API documentation and look under the sign-in experience management and end user enrollments, this is where you can find these URLs, and you can actually get for the enroll endpoints. If you want to get the list of IDs specific to your org, you can use this authenticators call. So just list all authenticators to get your list of IDs. So you can actually, if you take this and then I'm going to give a shout out here for this Rockstar API
Mhm.
Explorer plugin. It's really handy because it uses you can use this from your admin console, and it's using the your actual logged in admin uh, tokens to authorize the API calls. So you can just paste this here, send it, and then this gives you all of the authenticator types that you have configured and the associated IDs with it. Obviously, you can make that call programmatically. For my little demo, I just cheated and did this and just hard coded those links in there. But this is the API call that you can use to get these links and then throw these in your own custom page to, with a very minimal amount of custom code, get some customized authentication management within your own screens. All right. So the next thing I want to look at, hey Dan, is there anything you wanted to add around the custom authenticator enrollment endpoints?
No, the big thing about that is you just saw a very minimalistic HTML version of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's quite intentional. We have kind of a developer architect mindset, so you can use any language, any way of getting those tokens and getting that information to be able to embed it into your application. You already have those things. You may already have a profile page inside of your app or in other parts of your business. So you can embed it quite anywhere, right, in your profile. Another use case for that is those situations where you're on a journey to go away from passwords, right? And you're trying to figure out what is the way to encourage folks to enroll a non-password. Maybe it's WebAuthn, maybe it is um, FastPass or any other authenticator or another phone number. So you can use that as part of your campaign, and those URLs could be used to invoke that enrollment at any point in time. So it no longer has to be a list of instructions that you to get folks to go down this journey or into the catacombs of your app to find this. You can quite literally push it into the respective places. Maybe it's on your help desk support site. I wanted to do this, and you can drive them right into that and then bring them right back to where they came from. So
Yep.
we're just showing a really basic example of it. Um, it really allows for more extensibility, and it doesn't impact the depending, in, for example, in the WebAuthn flow, the domain for Okta is different than the domain that for your respective application, very likely, right? You can enroll it at the right level, the right parties domain. So it's very helpful, very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, that's a good point. My little example was the link was triggered from an app where I had already authenticated, so there was already some user context there. But you notice it still challenged me for authentication based on my the end user management authentication policy requirements to challenge every time. But you could even use these links, as Dan was saying, outside of end user context. It could be a generic, you know, support or help page that you have in house if you're trying to promote enrollments and new authenticators, and you can just throw that link directly there, and it's going to challenge the user to authenticate as themselves before they enroll in that authenticator. So it's a very handy endpoint to use in a lot of different contexts.
Exactly.
All right. So next thing I want to talk about is some of the new capabilities around self-service registration, and specifically the flexibility that you have from the user profile enrollment standpoint. So in OIE, there's a under security, there's a new section called user profile policies, and you can target these per application. So within your tenant, if you have different applications that might have different requirements for a user profile to access that specific application, you can target that specifically on a per app basis. Um, my example app is this one here. Where was it? The redirection. Yeah, this one here. So it's just using this default policy. But if we look at some of the options you have from the policy standpoint, so the first thing is, whether or not you want to allow self-service registration or not. So basically, that is whether or not you see that you know have an account, if not sign up link, right? So this thing here. Uh, Let me clear tokens and log out.
Yeah.
So this one, right? So if you choose not to allow it, you won't even see this link at all. Um, and then you can also choose whether or not you want to enable or disable progressive profiling. So this would be a case where you could potentially create an account with some piece of the profile information missing on the initial creation, and then prompt them the next time that they sign in for that, right? Um, I guess the use case that's commonly used, if you think about like an e-commerce site, you might want to initially create an account with nothing more than an email address, just for someone who's browsing your site for the first time. And then maybe when they take the next step and actually try to say something to the cart, or you move forward in like a checkout process, you might want to capture more information at that point. So you have the ability to do that in a progressive manner, so that you can create remove as much friction as possible from the account creation process, and only ask for information as it's needed. You can choose whether or not you want to show the password field on the first page of the enrollment form. You can choose whether or not you want to require email verification. Typically, this is a good idea. I did not do it here just because I didn't want to wait for like 5 minutes for an email to come through, because my email is a little slow sometimes. But you can require email verification before allowing access to the application. You can add users to groups. You can associate inline hooks to this registration flow. So, most people don't want to allow just anybody to sign up without any guardrails on that at all. So you certainly can apply an inline hook to apply whatever additional logic you want as part of that flow before you allow the account to get created. And then you can build your customized form, right? So based on the fields that you're collecting as part of your profile enrollment. You can customize the actual form labels. You can do the mappings for what profile attributes those fields map to, and so forth. So if we take a look at what that looks like, I'm going to switch over to my other view here. So let's assume I don't have an account here and I want to sign up. So let's say, so because I'm not requiring email verification, it's letting me immediately go in and set up other authenticators. So if I want to set up, let's say I want to set up let's set up security key biometric.
Yeah. And to know, you don't have to have all those. Those are all configured by
By
policy.
policy. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly
it's
right.
it yeah, it doesn't have to be quite a laundry list. Again, we're having our engineering hats on, not quite our marketing hats at the moment, just to kind of guide you through
Yep.
what is capable of being done.
Yep. And the same thing here. It's requiring me to set up a password now. This is all based on policy configuration. So this would not necessarily be something that you would have to do. The good thing about the redirection model is that everything is based entirely on your policies. You don't have to do any coding around this to get this done. Oops. Right. And now you notice like it's giving me, so it prompted me for, it initially gave me multiple options. I chose WebAuthn or security key as my first one. It then required me to do a password, again, based on policy settings that are in place here. Now it's coming back and allowing me, if I choose, to enroll in additional authenticators, but I don't have to. All of these are optional at this point, so I can just continue. And then this will take me directly into my app. Um, Now, the interesting thing, like I think I mentioned earlier, I've got three different versions of this based on my three brands. So I have my REM branded app. I also have a version of this that's using the same OIDC client app that is more of a Bell and Sebastian branded. One of the things I want to point out with the brands is that when you have a brand and a custom domain associated with that brand, the sessions are separate across, like between those domains, right? So everything in my REM branded custom domain, that's that's one session that's tied to that URL, that custom domain. Even though this is the same application tied to the same Okta tenant, this is a different session, right? Because it's a different domain. So if I want to log in here as myself, so I've got, I'll refresh this so you can see who's logged in here. So same application, same tenant, two different brands, and two completely different sessions. So just be aware of that. If you have a scenario where you have multiple applications that you want to have um, share kind of an SSO experience across those applications, the easiest way to accomplish that is to use the same domain for your authentication. So if you can come up with something that's kind of a more generic domain for just for your authentication, like your sign-in redirect, that could apply across the different applications, that's going to be the simplest way to get an SSO experience across different applications or so forth. There are ways to accomplish it across different brands, but it gets a little more complicated, and there's a little more custom configuration involved there. Um, all right. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to talk about is so Dan mentioned earlier, when we say redirection model, what we're really talking about is sort of a standards-based federation model. Um, what you're really doing is just configuring an app, like a custom SSO app in Okta, and choosing a mechanism to federate. And then you're redirecting to Okta to handle all the authentication and then assert that identity to you in some way using a standards-based protocol. So really any standards-based protocol that you want to support, whether it's OIDC or SAML or WS-Fed, whatever, we can support those, and the redirection model can handle any of those federation protocols for whatever your app may be. I will say though, if you're starting from scratch, like if you're building your app from scratch or building your integration in Okta from scratch, and you have a choice of what federation protocol to use, um, generally speaking, I would recommend going with OIDC, just because it's going to give you a lot more flexibility in terms of the data that you can get, the things you can do to kind of manage not only your own session, but sort of peripherally manage the Okta session outside of your app, et cetera. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So on that note, I want to kind of show you a couple of things.
And and unlike something like SAML, OIDC has the ability to have the Java Web Tokens for not only for your access tokens, your ID tokens, and offline access support, so it can be consistent data model across the board. That's a whole
Exactly.
nother uh, webinar we can have about just going in and using our token hooks and being able to manage that. So you get a lot more bang for your buck on the integration than it is just having a user ID and password and getting the context back. Hey, the yes or no.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Um, so one of the things, so a couple things. First off, you've got an ability to do a lot of customization around what is included in your tokens. So under your API access management area, you can first of all define multiple authorization servers if you want, and then within each authorization server, you can define things like custom scopes if you want, custom claims that can be included in your tokens, um, access policies. One of the things I want to point out here that I've seen a lot of customers use. So a lot of times customers will have a desire to um, have some impact on the Okta session, the underlying Okta session from within their own application. So particularly if you have a scenario where you've got multiple applications that are all federating to Okta and you want to have kind of an SSO experience between those applications, and you want to basically make sure that while the user is actively using application A, that is keeping the Okta session alive so that if they then try to access application B, they have an SSO experience when they access application B. Um, with OIDC, it's really easy to do that just by configuring your tokens and using the token management within your own application to extend the Okta session as a byproduct of that, right? So one of the things you can do within your authorization server settings is define your access token lifetime. Um, it can be really helpful if you mirror your access token lifetime around your Okta session lifetime, like the idle time, right? Because that way within your application, as you are managing your session, or excuse me, as you're managing your access token, you can do things like silently renew access tokens while there's an active session. So when the access token is about to expire, make a call to get a new access token. If your access token lifetime is kind of mirroring your session lifetime, then you can guarantee, unless somebody explicitly logged out or killed the session, that the Okta session should still be active when you make the call to get the new access token while the user is still active in your app. And that call to get the new access token will extend the Okta session itself. So then in the scenario I described earlier, where you have, application A and application B, they're both federated to Okta, you're keeping the underlying Okta session alive so that if you switch over to application B, you won't have to log in again. You'll get that SSO experience. And it's something that's really easy to do just by kind of setting up your configuration for access token lifetime to kind of mirror your session lifetime. Um, what else? All right. I'm going to pause there. Dan, before we get into Q&A, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, the other part, we won't get too deep into that. That access token can become your quote unquote app session,
Right.
and you can use that to rehydrate. Hey, you need it to. Yeah, are they still logged in? Use that to go. If you can generate a token, that means they're still logged in. You don't have to prompt again. You don't have to check any cookies or anything like that. You go have the user go back and get another token. Their browser will be able to do that. So even if you made that shorter than the Okta session, you have an idea of where they are in the scheme of things, but depending on your assurance levels and whatnot. The other piece of that is you can enhance that token with way more data, even outside of Okta and using hooks. But that
Exactly.
again, that gets beyond. Again, we're talking about a customizations and how to perform integration, and it's kind of like that bridge of federation and app. A lot more of the customizations come down just to the user experience side. What on the identity space, like why you don't need to build those things out. We can use policy to change that. And a great example of why using this federation model, this redirection model, is because let's say you're starting up right now, your team says we want user ID and password. That's all we need. That's all we had. Then somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I want to use SMS and email as an authenticator or as a secondary factor." And then we know the evolution will be, oh, we want to use WebAuthn. I want to use passkey. And if you build all this stuff into your application itself, every time they say change something, you need to change code. By using this redirection model or the federation model and having the user go through our services to perform the user experience to authenticate, to perform um, the authentication flow, it's a policy change. It takes minutes and seconds to minutes, right, to actually make those changes. And depending on where they are and the posturing and all of that stuff comes along for the ride. So if they've logged into the device and you say it's the same device as before, all those behaviors are built in, right? Whereas when we go to starting to embed it, we start to get into some wonkiness with cross domains. If anybody's trying to to do things outside the norm, your system may not be able to send the right telemetry, and they may just log in more and more. So being able to unlock the full potential of the policy framework, which is where Okta is strides ahead of virtually everybody, our competitors, you can have all of that power by doing that.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I was looking for this. I thought I had an example of this in my little glitch example, but apparently not. But there, for the kind of silent token management, you can use. There's a
Correct.
if you use the Okta Auth.js SDK, makes it very easy to manage. There's a get without prompt that you can use to automatically retrieve a new token as the token's about to expire, and there's also a config. Um, if you are using an embedded widget, which we'll talk about more in the next session, but if you are using an embedded widget, there's a way that you can configure the widget to automatically through the token manager, and actually do this with the Auth.js as well, but through the token manager, you can configure it to automatically sort of monitor when the access token is about to expire and then take action. So if you want to automatically renew it, as long as they're still active in your application, you can configure that right in the Auth.js or the widget as well. All right. So I'm going to pause here. We've got about 12, 13 minutes left. I want to make sure that we have time for questions. I see that there were a couple of questions in the Q&A that Dan has already answered. Do we have anyone with any live questions that you want to either type in the Q&A, or if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you so you can ask your question live?
Mhm.
Let's see, where did my participants window go here?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any.
All righty. Let's see. All right. In that case, if there are no questions, then let me briefly go through some of the resources that are available to you. And if you do have questions as I'm going through this, feel free to either throw them in the chat window, or you can raise your hand and we'll get to you once I'm done going through this. Um, but I do want to quickly go through uh, a quick reminder of how, if you are still in Classic, how to get to OIE. So it is a self-service process now. You should see, if you log in as a super admin, you should see this banner at the top of your
Uh-oh.
dashboard with a big scary schedule upgrade button. Don't worry, you can click the button. It doesn't do anything yet.
Oh, I think your audio just broke.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh.
Am I am I back or?
It just came back when you
Okay.
said the broke. You just said the button.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, so you should see if you log in as a super admin, this big scary schedule upgrade button, which don't worry, it's not going to do anything yet. The first step is it'll actually analyze your specific configurations and come back with any items that either should be brought to your attention and you should acknowledge, or in some cases, there may be some configuration changes that might be required. But once you've addressed anything there, then you can basically pick the date and time you want the upgrade to happen, and it happens automatically for you. Um, as far as upgrade resources, there are a number of things that are available here. Note the QR codes here on the slides. These will take you to the links to each of these resources. So we have our OIE upgrade hub, or just our OIE hub, I guess, generally speaking. So it'll give you an overview of OIE, links to knowledge-based resources, links to our community site, the community office hours webinar site, and a link to our YouTube playlist where you can find recordings of these webinars as well as a lot of other OIE related videos. Our knowledge base hub, which will give you detailed information about specific eligibility items that may be called out from your eligibility report. It'll go into some specific feature changes between OIE and Classic. There's also a sample upgrade test plan here to kind of get you started, or at least get you thinking about the right things in terms of how you want to approach your pre-upgrade testing. There's a developer hub, which goes into more details around some of the developer-centric changes between Classic and OIE. So API changes, new OIE SDKs, information about the sign-in widget specific to upgrading, uh, additional developer resources, and developer test strategies can all be found there. Our community site, so this is our OIE webinar office hours community hub. So this one, definitely keep this bookmarked. This is where you can find links to sign up for one-on-one office hour sessions with a member of my team, to answer whatever questions you may have around OIE, whether it's upgrade related questions or questions around new features and functionality in OIE, et cetera. Also, we post notifications for events that we have, like these webinars, and when we have the recordings of these available, those are all posted there as well. In addition, our YouTube channel. So there's an OIE specific playlist on the Okta YouTube channel where you can find all of these webinar recordings, as well as a lot of other OIE related videos. And finally, on the subject of these webinars, we do have another session coming up next month. This will be, again, a continuation of our Foundations of OIE series. This one's going to be focused on custom integrations that are using the client side embedded model. That's going to be on the 31st of July, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and the QR code will take you to the registration page for that site if you are interested. All right, so I am going to take a quick look at the Q&A again. Do we have any?
No, it looks pretty clear.
All right.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage folks that are going down this journey to take advantage of these opportunities on the one-on-ones and continue to attend these. That way you can address some of the more specifics on what you need to do to get through to Identity Engine and leverage its full potential.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, with that, if there are no other questions, Dan, did you have any final comments before we wrap for today?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks for coming out, guys,
Yep.
and
All
cheers.
right. Yep. Thanks, Warren. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for Sheer for joining. And obviously, thanks all of you for joining. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right,
Thanks,
cheers.
everyone.
Bye.